everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!
You know what? I think I'm going to get each of you to record your parts so that we'll just play them so that we can keep the simulation of the opening at least somewhat
That's okay.
intact.
I mean, maybe we'll just start doing it this way forever because Shannon's never going to be on the show again.
No. He's just working at Universal this week, folks. But we are very happy to.
Lot of raptors got loose this week. Lot of raptors loose in the park.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation we're going to have. We got a lot of topics to get into here as we end the week. For those of you who missed out on our earlier this week episode, it dropped on Tuesday. We talked about the Russo's X-Men stuff. We got in some trailers, talked about some other stories that were going on in the world. So those are this. You can definitely watch that episode if you haven't caught up on that or listen to it. Remember, we are available on a podcast feed. But with this is our end of the week episode. We're going to get into some tough stuff, but also some fun stuff, some good stuff, some exciting stuff, and get a break it all down and have our conversations. All the stuff.
Stuff.
So I am John Rogan, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Right. And the way the show works, for those who may be the first time listening to us or watching us, we bring up a geek news item and then we talk about it amongst ourselves. And we have a main geek news item. But the way this is going for today and the way we did it on Tuesday, it's just I'm just going to toss stuff out to hear what Michael has to think about these things and go back and forth about these topics. And usually that at least a fun conversation. So sit back and relax. And let's have some fun. So, but Mike, we should definitely start with the tougher topic just to get it out of the way. A lot of stuff breaking today around this actress here, Karla Sofía Gascon, who is, of course, the lead of EMILIA PEREZ, although some people might argue that Zoe Saldana might possibly be the lead of that movie. But she is an incredible amount of hot water for tweets that came out here. She is nominated currently for Best Actress for the Oscars. Of course, EMILIA PEREZ swept up at the Golden Globes. But some of these tweets came out. I just took a few of these and put them together in a bit of a compilation. The tweets are very Islamophobic. They are racist. And then the big one that came out today as we're recording this one was referencing Hitler. And she was essentially saying how Hitler had some logic to what he was doing, and she supports, in essence, not saying that she supported what he thought, but just had ideas that seemed like it might be anti-Semitic in the things that she said. And so this is the tweet here. This is the same old story of black slaves and women in the kitchen, but it is my opinion, it must be respected. I do not understand so much world war against Hitler. He simply had his opinion of the Jews. Well, that's how the world goes. So Michael, clearly this caused a lot of uproar, and I have to ask you this. One, well, for three reasons. One, because obviously you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Two, you are Jewish. But three, and maybe the most important, you love movies, you love the Oscars, and your analysis of this stuff, we've talked about it way before we started the Geek Buddy. So your professional analysis of this stuff is always insightful, interesting to hear. So what are your thoughts on all three of these levels when you see these tweets and when you see the reactions from her? We'll get to what she said afterwards, but please, Michael, your reactions to all this stuff.
Well, first I just gotta say, I do find it fascinating to tweet something like, yeah, Hitler just had his opinions. Yeah, somebody who says, I don't like Jewish people, and just posts that somewhere has an opinion that you can either agree with or disagree with. Someone who has an opinion and drives an entire country to exterminate 6 million people, it's more than an opinion. How do I feel about this? Here's how I feel about it. Here's where I think our whole divided political system really, you just get into these weird issues because, look, I, as you just pointed out, am part of the LGBTQ community. I am very pro-trans.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that there aren't trans people that are assholes.
Mm.
This is a trans person who, based on her tweets, is an asshole.
Yeah, seems like.
Doesn't make her any less trans, doesn't make her any less of an asshole. That's really, and I mean, and this has sort of been building. I mean, these tweets coming out at this point in time, this is a dirty Oscars race. I'm going to jump around. Like as a movie fan, as an Oscar fan, as a gay guy, as a Jewish guy. This is a dirty Oscars race. Like all of these stories that are coming out right now, a lot of these are fueled by people that are trying to tarnish other people's movies for the thing. We've got an AI controversy over here about The Brutalist. We got these tweets being unearthed towards Emilia Perez. Like, it's a dirty Oscar race. Doesn't mean these things aren't true. It's just like them all coming out right now while people are voting. You're like, yeah, this is something. But I think this really does get into those things. It's like, oh, you know, when you are pro-trans and you have this movie, even though I don't think Emilia Perez is necessarily a 13 nominee worthy film. You have a movie that has a trans storyline that focuses on trans issues, and you're like, oh, I want to support this movie. But from the get-go, even before these tweets were unearthed, the director of Emilia Perez, some of the cast of Emilia Perez, seem to have been a little bit dismissive of some of the critiques against Emilia Perez. A movie that is set in Mexico, that's not directed by a Mexican director and directed by a director who has been pretty clear on the fact that he wasn't super interested in diving into the authenticity of the Mexican experience. So there was already sort of I feel like some of these tweets are a little tone deaf. So the fact that these other tweets are now piling onto it, yeah, she sounds like a dick. Like, she's an asshole. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and I think this is where we get into this whole thing of like, you can be progressive and really support the cause and still have people that you want to support their right to exist, even if you don't really like them and what they say. And this is kind of the situation that we seem to be in right now.
Well, let me follow up to see what you think about this, because she did today. She shut down her Twitter, and she
it was smart move.
Yes, I think the Hitler tweet was like, that was finally enough. There was going to probably be more that was going to be found here, and we should say it was found by an independent journalist who went and found these tweets and posted them, who has like 45,000 followers, and so this is how it gained traction, was picked up by the trades here. But she shut down her Twitter account, and then she sent a letter to the Hollywood Reporter, in essence saying to the Hollywood Reporter that she is the victim of a campaign of hate and misinformation to affect my family and me. The apology is pretty long. The letter is pretty long, where she says, I'm sorry, I can no longer allow this campaign. I've been threatened with death, insulted, abused. I have a wonderful daughter to protect. I made a decision to use a social network, and I use it as a diary in my reflections and notes. I did not think it was going to be something people were going to refer to later on. She has defended every minority and in the world against racism, and says, you will never hear me support a war, injustice, extremism, or applaud anyone who oppresses other human beings. I go to your Twitter tweet or your Hitler tweet, and said, maybe I'm human, I made mistakes, what have you. But if you want to continue attacking me as if I were responsible for hunger and wars in the world, I apologize. If I've ever offended anyone. And said at the end here, it is clear that there is something very dark behind it. So, and says that she will rise again from the ashes of this attack. So it seems like she's getting the wrong message, Michael, from all of this. Like, it's about like doing your work and evolving, but she's saying that she's trying to connect it to this campaign, saying that perhaps she's being attacked because she is trans. And I think that's a disingenuous point of view to have. But again, I'm a straight white male, so I go to you, Michael. What do you think about this letter, and what do you think about this reaction from her?
She tweeted stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like it's this is such a cut and dried, like all of these, whenever somebody comes out and says any version of, I just use social media to share my thoughts, I didn't know these things were going to come back and haunt me in the future. If you put something on the internet, it's going to come back at some point. Like that is just it. And that's not to say that there are examples. I mean, given the length and memory of social media, times change, attitudes change. There are things that somebody might say in 2000 that in 2025 our opinions of things have changed. So there's definitely a spectrum of certain times you're going to look at somebody's tweets and you're going to be like, that didn't age well. That doesn't feel right today, but given the time and place, I understand. Like there's a whole, like this is where the right and the left tend to want to make everything a black and white issue. And a lot of these things are gray issues. Her tweets in particular, a couple of those real winners, there was a time that might have been appropriate. Like there's no, oh yeah, I can see that. Oh, the year was 2002 and people were really feeling good about Hitler. Like there's never a point where these tweets were okay. And to say that, are these tweets being unearthed now because somebody somewhere is potentially trying to smear Emilia Perez so it doesn't win Best Picture? Potentially. Could be. But it doesn't change the fact that those tweets exist and she said them.
Right.
Like, I just don't, like if you say, just because you were a part of one marginalized group, even if it is a group that, given where we're currently at in our political system, is being targeted in a horrible, horrible way by our government, it doesn't mean you get off the hook for saying a bunch of really shitty stuff about other marginalized groups. Like that's just not how that works. So I mean, as someone who thought Emilia Perez was a very interesting movie and has certain things about it that are really good, and I always appreciate a movie that takes a swing, but also a movie that I thought was problematic in a lot of ways, and parts of it really, really don't work. The more that I hear from some of the cast, the director, other people, it does, if it is indeed a smear campaign, it's working because it's making me like the movie less. But whether that's what's happening or not, it doesn't change the fact that these things that she said aren't okay in any capacity, no matter who you are or when you say them.
It's tough to claim a smear campaign when you keep handing them the black paint to smear you with these tweets. And you mentioned the director Jacques Audiard the other day saying how he thought the Spanish language was the language of the poor people and the migrants. And so you say dumb things like this.
It's literally just been from the moment that anyone in Mexico said, hey, this movie kind of doesn't really represent us.
Yeah.
We don't really appreciate the content of this movie. We don't really appreciate what this movie says about us. And we don't appreciate that most of the leads aren't Mexican. And the response from the director and the cast didn't really feel great. And then the trans community comes out and says, hey, this movie doesn't really represent the trans experience. A lot of the things that are in here kind of go against the things that the trans community is trying to say about what it's really like to be trans. The fact that this character sort of gaslights her family and pretends to be somebody else is not something we really support. So you have a movie that is a Mexican movie about a trans woman. The Mexican community and the trans community are all like, this isn't great. And the director's like, I don't care. And then your lead actress is like, I don't care what you think. Also, Hitler had his opinions. Like, just across the board, this is just bad across the board.
So, what do you think should happen here? Should we let this, well, not we, because if we can do anything, but do you think the Oscars, do you think the Academy should rescind the nomination, should maybe replace her with someone else, or maybe disinvite her to the ceremony just for everybody's sake? And this is sad because this is the first trans woman to be nominated for an Academy Award, and to have all of this pop up is just kind of ruins the I don't know, the glass breaking or ceiling breaking of it all. So a historical aspect of it all. So what do you think here, Michael? What should be the answer from the Academy?
Man, I don't know what that answer is. Okay. I think I don't think that how do I put this? I don't think she was going to win before all this.
Oh, I agree. I don't think she was.
So I don't think I don't think we're in a position where we're like, oh shit, this person is on the cusp of winning this. I don't think she's going to win. So like, I think the best thing to do is just nothing. Honestly, like it's like
okay.
the movie's gotten nominated. It is what it is. The movie
Right.
exists despite any of the shitty things anybody who worked on the movie said.
Yeah.
It got its nominations. The Academy is all currently voting. Like
Yeah.
they can choose what they want to take as, if you want to use all of this outside information in your voting, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Right.
It's one night. It's going to win what it wins, and then we're all going to move on with our lives. Whereas if you turn into, we're not inviting this person, we're doing this, all of a sudden we're rescinding nominations. Like you just are opening the box to a road that you're like, I don't know where that road stops. So I think that it's like the less said about any of this, the better. If people win, let them give their speeches. I don't think that's going to happen. And then they move on with their lives, and we don't have to cast them in things anymore if we don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
I think there's this gut reaction to sort of, well, we have to respond to this, or we have to punish, or we have to say this won't be tolerated. And at the end of the day, life is going to work out how it works out. If you're an asshole, people aren't going to work with you most of the time. There's a couple assholes that seem to still get work. But for the most part, it's like, like let this all roll out how it rolls out.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get more representation so that we get some trans people that don't think Hitler had his opinions in some really nice featured roles that are supported by the trans community and whoever that movie happens to be about. And we can celebrate those people.
Yeah. And the people, the country that you're representing, giving love to it as well. I think it should be. Yeah. Good.
I just really quickly, because you do realize as a queer person, it is shitty.
Yeah.
Because to your point, first trans woman nominated for a best actress. Like this should be something the entire community is celebrating.
Yeah.
This should be something that I personally, as a queer person, I'm like, this is great. And I'm really happy that this is happening. And it sucks that I don't feel that way. But I am not so desperate for my community to be represented that I'm going to let it be represented by someone that I don't think is necessarily a good person that we should be holding up as a prime example of our community.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Michael. Absolutely great point. For me, I think they should rescind it, but I understand if they don't. I mean, there's plenty of great performances that didn't get a nomination, that could get a nomination. Although how many of those actresses would want to slide in, as a replacement nomination? There's also a sense of pride with that. So we'll see what they end up doing. I think
who wants to be the runner-up nominee that you made it in under the wire? You know what I mean? That doesn't. It's like that's why I'm like the whole thing turns into a. If you were to start rescinding nominations, particularly if you were like, fuck it, let's rescind all 13. Here's a movie that got, again, I don't think it deserves it, but you got as many nominations as Mary Poppins and Gone with the Wind, and all of a sudden we're going to take back 13 nominees and put in 13 alternates. Like that is just a hornet's nest that nobody wants to touch, which is why you just go, okay, you know what? Let the Academy vote their hearts. Let's let this be what it's going to be. I mean, I think realistically, the only two areas where I'm going to eat my words if this ends up sweeping the Oscars, but I think that realistically, the only two places where EMILIA PEREZ is really going to potentially win is in the Best Supporting Actress Oscar and the Best Song Oscar. And I don't think either of those. I think Zoe Saldana is an A+ actress. I have nothing bad to say about Zoe Saldana. I don't know that this is her best role, and I don't think the songs in this movie deserve to win for best song. So, but I do think those are the two categories where it may happen. Obviously, I'm Team Galinda as for Best Supporting Actress, so we'll see what happens.
This might actually stain across the board any awards it might have won, but we'll see. As you said, and one of those tweets that were unearthed from a few years ago is her bashing Selena Gomez. So ironically, in the same movie with her, and all of that. So
let's all just leave Selena Gomez alone. She's had a rough week. She's had a rough week on Fox News. They've been coming for her all week.
Oh yeah, that's right. The crying. Oof, yeah, Selena. It's tough sometimes. All right, let's move on to this story. Well, let's take a little bit of a breather with this story here, Michael. What are your thoughts on this? Because there's been a lot of conversations this week and announcements of who is dropping Super Bowl ads and who isn't dropping Super Bowl ads, and it seems like from what we're getting from the accounts here that Warner Brothers is not doing a Super Bowl ad. So are you a little surprised by this? They're going to do a Puppy Bowl thing, but they are not doing an ad during the Super Bowl. Marvel's doing three, I think three of them. Disney's doing a couple of ones there as well. Paramount for Mission Impossible. And so there are quite a few studios who are doing them. There's a few studios that aren't, but I mean, Superman is such a massive thing. It's not going to be a Comic-Con. They'll probably show something at CinemaCon, but this is the rollout. So do you think this is a smart move, or do you think this is a bad decision?
It feels weird that you're not getting a big ad, but at the same time, we just got that trailer.
Yeah, good point. Yes.
Like I mean, like if you think about it, we just got that like what, like a month ago? How long ago was it? What was it? Like a month and a half?
Yeah, I think
we
it was a month and
got
a half ago,
that full 2-minute that was a lot to chew on. Do we and then we just got this 30-second spot like a week or so ago with the barrel roll heard around the world. Yes. So like, what else are they going to show us right now?
Right.
Like, I don't want another 3-minute trailer that shows off. I mean, it would be a Super Bowl trailer. They would do the typical, like, here's a 30-second trailer, go to YouTube to see the full trailer, which is I'm sure what Marvel's going to do. Yeah. But like, we've already seen so much. So, I even wonder if at a certain point, the trailer that we got, there was discussion of like, should that be the Super Bowl? And they were like, let's release it earlier and let's own the day, or what, like they really, those few days, like between the teaser of the trailer is coming and then the this and the that, like there was like a solid 72 hours that all any of us talked about was that Superman trailer. So, I mean, they did their job.
Yeah.
Everyone that needs to be aware that that movie is coming is aware that that movie is coming. So I don't know that they needed to, but I get why it feels weird with everyone else jamming in there. That doesn't feel like Superman is going to get lost in the shuffle. But the truth is, Superman's not getting lost in the shuffle. Whether you are excited about the movie or whether you are angry that we don't get the Snyderverse, or whatever it is, that movie's coming and we're all going to go see it.
Yeah. And to put the date on, the trailer came out on December 19th. Of last year. So they own.
Yeah, so it's the 31st. I mean, like honestly, it's like a month and a half.
Yeah, month and a half is all it's been.
From like that huge honking trailer. So getting another thing, like,
yeah, maybe
I don't know that would be worth the spend for them.
Especially as you just said, we had that teaser during the championship games over the weekend. So yeah, and that trailer still has 53 million views on it and counting, the original trailer, plus the different other posts of the trailer from the different companies involved in it. So I'm sure it's almost near 60 or 70 overall total in terms of views on YouTube. And as you said, only been out a month and a half. I do find it odd, but Jeff kind of corrected me on this last night on the hot mic. He's like, they'd already made this decision. So it wasn't like the reaction to the teaser is what forced them to not do.
There's no way. Like,
they already bought the ads. Yeah. So that cleared it up for me. Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, that 30-second spot that we got was maybe something they were cutting for the Super Bowl and said, why are we spending that money? We're just going to put it, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Anything that comes out for Superman between now and July, no matter where they put it, is going to get a ton of attention, as is already evidenced, and some of it good and some of it not, but like they're going to get attention. So they don't need the Super Bowl as much as like what Marvel's going to give us, a final look at Brave
Captain
New World, and then a Thunderbolts and a Fantastic Four. I mean, is that what we're thinking?
Yeah. That seems like the odds-on favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Marvel needs it. Marvel needs the excitement. Superman is going to live and die by whether or not we all think it's good, but we're all going already.
Yes. Right. Then Mission Impossible certainly needs it because that last one underperformed to a degree. So they want to get people back excited with that. So we'll see what that end result's going to be. And like you said, it's $7.5 to $8 million for those 30 seconds. So if you're David Zaslav and you've been cutting money and cutting the budget, you look at that and you go, do I really want to spend that much on a 30-second ad? Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I can see the logic of it. I wanted to think it signaled danger, but like you guys have said, they'd already planned it out. So
it does seem to me just the timing of like we had a big Superman teaser a month and a half ago. Then this 30-second spot just pops up on a random game day.
Yeah.
the Super Bowl is right here where you have 30-second spots. It really does feel like at a certain point, this was cut to be that.
Yeah.
And then it was like, what are we doing? Let's just put it here. Like that. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. Well, from one superhero to another, let's jump into this real quick. Now that we've taken our breather, let's talk about Anthony Mackie, who was interviewed in Rome for the Captain America: Brave New World, which we were just mentioning here, press junket, the international press junket. And when he was asked a question about Captain America, he said, Captain America, what it represents for him, he said, Captain America represents a lot of different things. And I don't think the term America should be one of those representations. It's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. And Michael, as you might imagine, this caused quite a backlash in certain sections of the fandom and certain sections of our political sphere. And Anthony Mackie, went on his Instagram stories and clarified to a degree. He didn't apologize. He said, let me be clear about this. I'm a proud American, and taking on the shield of a hero like Cap is the honor of a lifetime. Trying to smooth things over, I think, to a degree. But let me ask you, Mike, did he say anything wrong? Did he make a mistake here? And what do you think of it, about his clarification here that he issued on Instagram stories? Is this a lot of hullabaloo over nothing? Yeah, this is basically what I want to get at.
Let me put it this way. Everyone has their political opinion right now about the world. Sure. Yes. And I'm not going to tell Anthony, I'm not going to tell anyone, particularly a person of color right now, how they should feel about this country. Like we're more divided than ever, and everybody has a fucking opinion. So I'm not going to say Anthony Mackie is right or wrong to feel what he feels.
Yes.
Doing PR for a movie that is about to come out, that was not a smart PR move to say.
Yeah.
That is like, at the end of the day, what really this boils down to, we all want to turn this into, well, yeah, that is true about America, or it's not true about America. It doesn't and that we can all have our opinions on that. It doesn't matter. Right. You have a movie coming out for Disney and Marvel. Yes. Where you are playing a character named Captain America, and Marvel and Disney need this movie to do well.
Yeah.
And for this movie to do well, you need people of all political backgrounds to go to the movie theater and see your movie.
Yes. You want to get
saying
as many
Captain America doesn't represent America is just not the move. And as evidenced by, would I have loved to have been a fly on the wall and hear the phone calls he got as soon as he said that. That made him turn right around and say, here's what I meant. And also, just in general, and look, you're doing press for a movie. As a couple people that I'm friends with have tweeted, like, you're doing press for a movie, you're being asked question after question after question, you've been doing it for hours, you say stuff sometimes, and maybe even after it comes out of your mouth, you're like, that did not come out the way that I meant for it to come out. So like, this is like, I'm not gonna like, go crazy over the one thing you said, but in general, if you feel a certain way right now, bring up the quote that he just said.
Yeah, the original quote? Yeah,
the original quote. Yeah. So he says, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term America should be one of those. It's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, integrity. If you are feeling a certain way about our country right now, and you just need to get it out, you can say, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I think he represents an America where honor, dignity, and respect are the things that we really value. Like, there's a way to say what he said without saying this guy doesn't represent America. That's going to automatically trigger half the country, and then trigger half the country to be upset that the other half the country is upset. Like, he just stepped right into the middle of our culture wars, which is not where you want the lead of your superhero movie to be standing.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
It's just like I'm not gonna get mad at anybody about feeling strongly about our country one way or the other right now. But just from a strictly business standpoint, it's like, you don't want to be anywhere near this. You want everybody to be like, hey, we want to see this movie.
Yeah. You want to be as bland as possible at this point, because the movie is already suffering from numerous PR hits with all those reshoots, a lot of rumors about what's been going on behind the scenes. The fact that it's tracking at 85 to 90, which is 95, which is nice, but not great. And you're already hearing some people who are just waiting to sharpen their knives. You're a black Captain America, so the deck is already stacked against you. Why add to it? And it feels like if you watch the video, it feels like he knew that he maybe let his real feelings out a little bit and tried to steer it to, well, when you were a kid and wanted to be a superhero, and this is such a great thing. And then by the end, trying to bring it back to the movie, you could tell he maybe just, and look, read that Esquire article. If you watch any interview with Anthony's going to say what he's going to say. He's going to give his opinion. He's going to give his thoughts. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I agree with you that it wasn't the right forum for it. I think he's got a right to feel this way, but it wasn't the right forum. And he should, you could do this in an interview after the film comes out, right? After it's been out for a couple of months and whatever. But now it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But I do think in general, I mean, look, and this covers like pretty much every topic that we're talking about this week, which is just like, we've had our new president in office for a couple weeks.
9 days.
A lot of things have been happening.
Yes.
And I think everybody is just a little on edge.
Yeah.
So anything that happens right now, anyone that's going to say anything right now, everyone is having big feelings and responding bigly. Like, that's just where we're at. So like, you know, I don't think Captain America represents America. Oh God. It's just like, it's just, we're that's where we're at right now. So yes, say, feel how you want to feel.
Sure.
Make sure your talking points when you're promoting your movie are locked down so that you don't accidentally let loose in a time when everybody wants to let loose. And I think we all need to just like chill out a little bit about the way we're responding to what everybody is saying, because we are all in a heightened state right now. No matter where you are in the political spectrum, you agree with me and John, or you absolutely vehemently disagree with me and John, and I don't know why you listen to Geek Buddies all the time, but wherever you are politically, like, we all are having some feelings.
And even Michael and I don't agree all the time. So, you know,
exactly.
Bigly sometimes as well. But yeah, and I know some people might bring this up, and so I want to bring it up so they don't accuse us of shirking it. But yeah, Chris Evans said a similar thing in 2011. But again, that was I do. But that was in an interview, not at a press junket. He said, what does it mean to you basically to be draped in the American flag for this film? How? Well, to me, I'm not trying to get too lost in the American side of it. This isn't a flag waving movie. It is red, white, and blue, but it just so happens that the character was created in America during wartime, when there was a common enemy, even though it is Captain America. I've said before in interviews, it feels more like he should just be called Captain Good, which he laughs at. You know, he was created at a time when there was this undeniable evil, and this guy was kind of created to fight that evil. I think that everyone could agree that Nazis were bad, and he, Cap, just so happens to wear the red, white, and blue. So yeah, that was the quote there that people are comparing and saying.
So here's the list of things that I've had this discussion with a few people about the Chris Evans quote. First of all, 100% yes. A white guy says something and doesn't get dinged for it. A black guy says something and does get dinged for it. If you're going to say that plays no role at all in any of this, like, no, like we have to admit that there is a level that you can't deny that just exists in the way these two quotes were taken. That being said, Chris Evans, what he is saying is at that point in time, the Marvel talking point.
Yeah.
Like, the difference here really is what Anthony Mackie did when he said Captain America doesn't represent America. At this point in time where we are in our culture, where Marvel is, where this movie is, you don't want that to be said. You don't want to get into that mess. When Captain America came out, there was debate on even should he be called Captain America, because Marvel did not want that movie to underperform internationally. Right. And there was a lot of concern about the world's opinion of America, and was that going to play down? So the Marvel talking point in that period of time was, let's distance ourselves a little bit. This guy is just a good guy. So what Chris Evans is doing there is like that. The Marvel PR team is standing off to the side being like, yeah, please make sure that we get that this is just a good guy. He was in a time, we all hate the Nazis. So he's doing the Marvel talking point. He also never strictly says, I don't think America should be represented here. He talks around it and does a whole little thing. Again, I don't think that means that Chris Evans is somehow much more nuanced than Anthony Mackie. I think Chris Evans was sticking to the talking points. And as you said, Anthony Mackie, as we know, kind of sometimes goes off of that. So there is like other differences to this. But at the end of the day, and I also think, just to be fair, if Chris Evans said even that in 2025, Fox News would jump on it. Maybe not as hard as they jumped on Anthony Mackie.
Right.
But they still would have jumped on it. So yes, a white guy said something and a black guy said something similar and it was responded to differently. 100% there is something to that. But I think that there's also other shades to those two quotes as well.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think it's about context and where you do it. And you're right. And the year you do it, because that's 2011. This is 14 years later.
That's Obama's president. Like
we think
we're
great.
The biggest controversy was he wore a tan suit. Like it was like we were living the dream, guys. It was great.
It does feel like it was a dream. There's one more Marvel thing that Jeff dropped last night. Something just broke though, Michael. I want to get your instant reaction to this.
Oh shit! Is this more controversy?
Possibly, but this is not the thing that broke. What I want to ask you is, Jeff last night mentioned that he's hearing rumors, because he broke that Sadie Sink is possibly in talks for, or possibly looked at for Jean Grey. Harris Dickinson is possibly being looked at for Scott Summers. He's 28 years old. Sadie Sink is 22. Harris Dickinson certainly has been becoming a stronger and stronger name in the business. What are your thoughts? Do you think you see him as a Scott Summers Cyclops, or do you think there's other people? Jack Champion has been mentioned as well. Do you like the idea of Harris Dickinson?
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other on any of the people who've brought it. I think all of them sort of are fitting the Scott Summers mold.
Okay.
Like I think these rumors are likely true because this all feels like it's in the right space. These actors who are being brought up are at the right age. Right. It sort of doubles it sort of confirms what we're all thinking, that like once we get past Secret Wars, we are sort of rebooting everything and getting the younger set of actors to play these characters. How do I say this without being... I think these are all good choices for actors, but I also think that the thing about Scott Summers and the thing about these actors, and Scott Summers traditionally is, Scott Summers is a tough nut to crack.
Yes, it is.
And it's very easy to go down Scott Summers is really boring road.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and so like some of these choices, you're like, these all look like nice guys. I just hope we don't end up kind of where we ended up. And I think James Marsden is great, but like where we ended up with Scott Summers as a character through those X-Men movies.
Yeah.
I think that I think X-Men 97 did a much better job of going, Scott Summers goes through some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot to deal with there, as opposed to I'm sort of the white bread Boy Scout. Let's do the right thing. And Wolverine's way more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I hope the approach is, Mike, is that each of these X-Men, who we have loved reading about in the comics and their extensive histories and drama and trauma that they deal with, that each of them gets to kind of stand out on their own in the movie and has enough narrative structure or enough story written behind each of the characters, so they really do kind of stand on their own and also work together as a team. That would be nice to see that, because that hasn't always been the case in these X-Men movies, and they've been cast that way. So I hope if they're looking at all of these kind of young, up and coming, really strong independent movie actors, that they're looking at that they want to do something that has a much more resonance overall how they accomplish it. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what Harris Dickinson, he's now in Baby Girl, which is I think out on VOD if you want to watch that awesomely interesting film with him and Nicole Kidman. He's on Blitz, which is on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with awesomely interesting.
That's what I'll say. And Murder at the End of the World, which I thought was a fantastic series that you guys can watch on FX. And then Triangle of Sadness, I think, was the big thing that kind of announced Harris as an actor. So here's the breaking thing, Mike. This just dropped on a number of outlets. So this was announced by Netflix. The Sandman is canceled. The Sandman series is canceled. Season 2 is coming out. That is still going to come out. But Netflix has officially announced today that the Sandman series is canceled. They will not be going forward with it here in the immediate future. So Michael, we like that first season, but we do know the Neil Gaiman accusations came out. I did a whole video on all those, breaking those down. And so if you guys want to watch it. And so what do you think here, Mike? What's your reaction? Seemed like it was coming?
I believe, and I could be wrong about this, and
Yeah.
we'll see when season 2 comes out. I had already heard that they were not sure about a season 3 even before any of this Neil Gaiman stuff happened, and I believe season 2 is going to cover most of the comics.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's canceled post that announcement came out, it's like I think that was already kind of in the cards even before this stuff. So I don't know. I think this is Netflix going, oh, this is an opportune time for us to reveal that we're not moving past a season 2, and nobody's gonna question it because obvious reasons. But yeah, man, I was literally just talking about this yesterday. I was with some friends at Disneyland, and we were having dinner, and Neil Gaiman came up, and I was like, "This is a tough one." Like as anyone who knows, as we've covered Sandman, as we talked about stuff, like Neil Gaiman, more so than a lot of other creative people, was such a touchstone. Like when I discovered Sandman in college, when I read Sandman, when I read Neil Gaiman's books, like his writing style, him as a person, like all of that, like so many others, like I found him so singularly interesting, and the way that he told stories really resonated with me. And now I just don't know that I can ever enjoy them, particularly because a lot of the things in Sandman and a lot of the things in the way he tells stories as a darker person tend to get into some darker, sometimes sexual places.
Yeah.
And given what has been revealed about him in real life, you can't, like, the obvious example, and this is if you've read the comics or if you've seen the Netflix series season 1, it was one of the episodes that was released, the Calliope episode, where a author who is struggling with writer's block captures a muse and keeps her in his house and keeps her prisoner and rapes her. I don't know how you read that story contextually anymore and don't see some of what Neil Gaiman did. So long and short of it is I believe that season 2 is going to cover most of the comics anyways. So I don't know what they would have done post that. In huge success, I'm sure they would have figured something out. But like, I think that
this just made
Neil Gaiman's done. Neil Gaiman's done.
Yeah. Sandman showrunner Alan Heinberg told Variety in response to this news, the Sandman series has always been focused exclusively on Dream story. And back in 2022, when we looked at the remaining Dream material from the comics, we knew we only had enough story for one more season. We are extremely grateful to Netflix for bringing the team all back together and giving us the time and resources to make a faithful adaptation in a way that we hope will surprise and delight the comics' loyal readers. As well as fans of our show. So
if you've read Sandman, and you've read all the volumes, like we got through volume 3. We got through volume 3. Like season 2 is going to pick up with volume 4, Season of Mists, and a couple of those later volumes, like 8, and a couple of those like kind of go off into different directions. I have a feeling we're just going to really focus on Dream story and kind of get all the way through the end of volume 9 into volume 10, and they're going to be like, that's a wrap. I mean, what Alan Heinberg said is basically that. They're telling Dream story.
And made it easier for them to just cut it. And because, I mean, it could have, if it was a success, they could have asked, as you said, for more seasons. We're going to see that with Shogun, a season 2 with literally no source material.
100%. Look, if
it had been successful, they would have gone forward, but the game and stuff made it easier to cut it now, I think.
Without spoiling anything that happens in Sandman for the audience that hasn't read the comics and is enjoying the Netflix series, and if you're going to continue to watch it, Dream's story does end, but the story of the endless and the dreaming doesn't. And there was definitely, in success, there would have been an avenue much like Shogun to even more so than Shogun, because there is actually source material that you could go to and adapt and whatever. So there was an avenue for more Sandman had it been hugely successful. I don't think that it was successful enough that they would have done that even without any of this controversy. But with the controversy, it's like anything that was being adapted anywhere that was remotely tied to something that Neil Gaiman had done, I just don't see how any of that goes forward.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to happier things here, Michael. Let's talk about, there you go, the first 2 episodes of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh, thank Christ. This has been so intense. It's been intense, Geek Buddies. Let's talk about the good stuff.
This is the first 2 episodes are out now on Disney Plus. If you guys haven't seen this one, this is from writer and showrunner here, Jeff Trammell. These, of course, are based on the Spider-Man comics, with Charlie Nooner being one of the writers here, Melchior Zweier, Liza Singer, quite a few directors involved in this one. So, but yeah, what an interesting first 2 episodes that they dropped here, Michael, that explore Spider-Man from the beginning. Episode 1, Amazing Fantasy, which is a play on where Spider-Man was first released, and then the Parker Luck, which got into more of his relationship with the kids, and then moving into the Norman Osborn sphere there. So let's get your thoughts. What'd you think? And this is a spoiler review, everybody. So you haven't watched them, you can stop here, go watch them, come on back. Your thoughts overall on these first 2 episodes where we dive into a little bit more of the specificity here.
I gotta tell you, I found these 2 episodes to be absolutely delightful. Like, this was just, I didn't quite know what to expect. I really liked the animation style. I was curious to see how the animation style played when you got a full episode as opposed to just a clip. And I knew that it was going to be, sort of a multiversal take on Spidey. So I knew we were getting different stuff. And I didn't know quite how I felt about that because, I very much like the Tom Holland MCU Peter Parker. There's not really a reason to tell an animated show about him. We see what's happening in the movies. And I also like classic Spidey. Like, having worked on Spectacular Spider-Man back in the day, I love Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson and Harry Osborn and kind of going back to a classic Spider-Man. And I knew that this was neither of those things. This was a very different take on Spidey. We weren't going to see, I knew, like, from the Comic-Con panel we had gone to a couple years ago, we weren't going to see Flash Thompson. We weren't going to see MJ and Gwen. This was a full new cast. And I was like, I don't really know, like, am I going to respond to this? Am I not going to respond to it? I thought it was great. I think they did a better job of doing What If than What If season 3 did in the way this executed. What I really appreciated the most, kind of from an overall standpoint, was the way that they sort of really placed this as this does take place in a world that is, even though it's very inspired by original classic Spider-Man and Steve Ditko and, like, visually, this is the MCU story, just a little bit different. And there's some key things that happen in the episode that veer this into a different direction, but there's also some key touch points that make it clear that we are still in a version of the MCU. And I thought that was really, really interesting and really smart. And then filling the cast with new characters, but also not new characters. Almost every single person in this series is a superhero or a Spider-Man villain or something. They've just been recontextualized and put in a different spot. So where this show could go is all over the place because every single character is potentially going to get powers down the road and either become an ally for Spider-Man or an enemy for Spider-Man, which is very in keeping with what Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did back in the day. So it has that classic feel. It has that MCU feel. It has some new stuff thrown in there, and you put it all in a blender, and what came out was just, to me, really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And these are legitimately 25 to 27-minute episodes.
These things are longer than a Star Wars episode on Disney Plus, if we're being honest.
Exactly. They're longer than Skeleton. And I like the way it's put together. I like the animation style. I know some people dinged it, but I like the nostalgic nature of the animation style. I really loved their take on the old song, the 1960s song, that the new thing with adding the I'll bring the artists up in a second, but I like the way they presented that theme. And I like that they hit overall what you've seen in Spider-Man before, right? pining for a woman he can't have in Pearl, which is usually MJ. He's got a friend. This time it's Nico instead of Ned, and he's got May is still there, but it's reminiscent of the Marissa Tomei. Maybe May, and Carrie Walgren does a great job voicing her, but a different type of May there as well. He's trying to go. He's going to Midtown, but then he ends up it ends up in another high school because of the accidents that happened there. And he befriends a quarterback guy. Could be Flash Thompson, but it's Lincoln. Was it Lincoln? Lonnie Lincoln. Sorry. Him being a part of this thing. And so where that leads, we know where he leads to. So I like it. And then you've got, a gender swapped, race swapped Connors doctor there.
Karla Connors.
Yeah. Carol Connors. Where's that going to lead us? And so there's so many things, the boxes that you can check here that you've seen in different iterations of Spider-Man in the original source material and the story, but with a different slant. And I think the Hollywood Reporter review, Daniel Feinberg, did a great job of saying, just think multiversal and you'll enjoy this thing, because we're going to get Charlie Cox voicing Daredevil, even though none of the original actors have come back to voice Doctor
But here's
Strange.
what's great is like, and this, I'm glad he said that, because multiverse has gotten, we all hate the word multiverse now.
It's a bad rap right now.
It's got a bad rap. Because phase 4 and phase 5 of Marvel just had some highlights, but for the most part got very confusing and annoying. And other things that have touched on the multiverse have been annoying. And so at this point, your casual observer of pop culture is like, if you give me another goddamn multiverse thing, but what this show is doing is good multiverse. This is like in the same way that Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse do really good multiverse. Like, these are stories that take our expectations but turn them around. And like, again, you're 100% right. Like, it's very classic Peter Parker. It's very classic Spider-Man, but also the show, the first episode opens and it's the New York skyline, and it says Queens in the exact same font that the MCU uses. If you watch Civil War and Tony Stark says, I got a guy, and it cuts to that thing and it says Queens in the exact same font, you can see Stark Towers in the background. So you're like, oh, and to your point, Peter Parker's about to go to his first day at Midtown. And if you look at a picture of Midtown High in the Spider-Man movies, in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and Midtown High in this animated series, they're identical. It's the exact same thing. So ostensibly, Peter Parker was going to go to a school for the gifted, and he would have met MJ and Ned and his crew. Except then, boom, multiverse. A portal opens, some variant of Venom comes through, and Doctor Strange comes through. Maybe a variant from another multiverse, maybe not. We're not quite sure, but he acts like his spells work the way the MCU spells work. He talks to his cape the same way. So again, even if this is a different universe as Doctor Strange, it's still placing it in the MCU. Spider-Bite in a different way. Like, everything happens differently. And then that's where I say this does What If better than What If. A very specific thing. Like up until that point, we might have been watching Tom Holland's first day going to Midtown. Like, we don't know. It could have been. But the moment that portal opens up and that Venom variant comes through, we're in a completely different timeline. Things split, and he ends up going to what's it called? Rockford Bales High School, where he now meets an entirely different cast of characters, and his life becomes super, super different. The other part that they do that's very I think out of the 2 episodes was the thing that I liked the most. Is at the end of the first episode when he comes home after doing what he does. And after saving that woman, or stopping that woman from stealing from the pizza guy, but then convincing the pizza guy to let her go, which is a perfect Peter Parker moment. He dumpster dives, finds a DVD player, walks into his apartment, and the animation, it is shot for shot the scene from Civil War where Tony Stark is waiting for him. It works the exact same. It is the exact same scene, except that it is Norman Osborn instead of Tony Stark. So doing that, like giving us a scene that is 100% something right out of the MCU, but tweaking it so that we're like, oh shit, Tony Stark picking you up and saying, come for an internship, and Norman Osborn coming up and doing the exact same thing is drastically different. And so in that way, they've taken the Peter Parker that is pretty much a version of the Peter Parker that we know and love. His suit is very similar to our Peter's suit when Tony Stark first finds him, but it sends the entire thing in a different direction. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Also, the scene with the stopping the car from hitting the bus. That's the animated version of the live action thing that Tony shows Peter in Civil War. Yeah, and so it's great to see that that's the thing that I think the show deserves a lot of credit for, is the way it weaves stuff we've seen in the original Spider-Man story for years, the comics and the MCU stuff. It weaves it all in here while also kind of having its own voice. And I think that's a very difficult thing to do. So I think Jeff Trammell deserves a lot of credit for how he was able to put this all together and make it work and make it fun for those of us who are knee deep into the stuff. And even if you're not, you still can enjoy it on its surface as it's being presented in its own way. What do you think about the voiceover work here? Let's run through some of the work, or some of the people who are involved in this. Hudson Thames as Peter Parker, Kari Walgren, as I said, as May, Grace Song as Nico. I thought Grace did a great job. Eugene Bird as Lonnie, Zeno Robinson as Harry Osborn, Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn. We get Kathy Ang as Pearl, Erica Luttrell as Asha, Alex Lee as Amadeus Choi, Paul F. Tompkins, of all people, as Bentley Whitman, which I thought was great, and Zara Fazal as Carla Connor. So your thoughts on the voice work we got from these first two episodes and the characters and the way they're kind of laid out and presented and connected to Peter as we go through the stories of these first two episodes?
His comments about the show being not woke and annoying aside, I think that Hudson does a good job as Peter Parker. I think all the voice work is really good. I just think it needs to be said. Dude said something stupid in an episode where we're talking about all the stupid shit that people said. He said something, it was stupid. But putting that aside, I do think that he and everybody did a really, really nice job. Like, I thought it just, like, nothing felt... The best compliment that I can give is that nothing jumped out at me. When you're dealing with voiceover in an animated series, the worst thing you want is for somebody's voice to be so distinctive because you know them from something else, or to not fit. If you notice the voices, you're like, ugh. Everyone here was doing great work. Like, it really, and really, like, just warm voices you liked. Like, it just, like, nobody felt like they were putting something on or being too cartoony or trying to sound too much like somebody else. Like, Doctor Strange doesn't sound like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange sounds like Doctor Strange. It just works. You know what I mean? So, like, I felt like everybody was, like, doing their own thing. And because this is a multiverse story and it's not quite the world we know, it's not like What If, where you're really trying to go, this is the one you know. This kind of show allows you to sort of take your own liberties with it, and I thought everybody really made the most of it from an acting standpoint.
Yeah, I have to say I enjoyed Hudson's take on Peter Parker, and as you said, the comments are the comments, but like his performance here I thought was damn good, and I liked that the different situations they put him in, his voice adjusted to play the emotions of the scenes, and I kind of love that. As you mentioned, the young girl who he captured for stealing the money from the pizza place, the way he's speaking to her, and then later when she leaves, the way he speaks to the pizza owner about the situation, the way he talks to May, the way he deals with Whitman, and the way he deals with Connors, two completely different things. Even the way he deals with the security guard, even the security guard is going to be something if they go and pursue that storyline with that character's name. So everybody he comes in contact with, there's some really nice work being done here. Really love the Nico energy. It reminded me of Daria. It almost reminded me of like Daria's best friend that she hangs out with all the time.
Nico being Daria is that means they're doing it right.
Yeah, it's got that kind of energy to it. And I do like Eugene Bird doing the Lonnie Lincoln thing. I thought that was going to be a bit of a meathead role, but there's a lot of levels to him. And I got to say, story-wise, that sequence of him being kind of lonely, getting on the subway, walking through the lower income area that he comes from, and he goes into a wonderful home that's well kept and a beautiful family, but around it there's danger, and you can tell there's a weight he's carrying. I thought that was a really great sequence to give us more for him.
Well, I mean, look, I love that Peter Parker goes from going to a school for the gifted to a school that like really prioritizes athletics.
Yes.
But at the same time, they didn't fall into any of the typical stereotypes. So Peter Parker, even though he's smart and he's at a school that is primarily for athletes, he's actually because of his friendship with Lonnie,
Yeah.
pretty popular.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're not doing the Peter Parker's getting picked on, Peter Parker this, Peter Parker that. We're doing a different story here. And
Yeah.
even that great scene where he's like, "Oh, now I have to carry Pearl's boyfriend who's an idiot." And then you instantly find out that he's not an idiot. And he's like, "Yeah, I know
Right.
everybody thinks I'm an idiot because I'm, I'm an athlete, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty smart." So like they did a good job of not falling into any very like overly broad stereotypical
Yeah.
traps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think also just, I mean, because we're talking about them, I mean, just for a quick rundown, like for anybody who's like Nico Minoru is from the Runaways comic, which is
Yeah.
one of the better things that Marvel's come out with in the past, couple decades.
Sure.
It's about a group of kids who find out, who all have some level of superpowers for the most part, that all find out that their parents are in this like super secret supervillain club, and they all run away. And Nico's parents are these dark wizards, and she has this staff and can do magic. So Peter's best friend potentially has a bunch that she can do. Lonnie Lincoln in the Spider-Man comics becomes Tombstone.
Yes.
So we know that so like that, and because they're focusing so much on Lonnie and making this friendship between him and Peter so strong, you can really see, and to your point, really showing what he's dealing with at home. They're really doubling down on, I think we're gearing up for a pretty tragic supervillain origin for Lonnie. Obviously we've got Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn, and there's a wealth to work for there. But even Pearl, who is, kind of standing in for MJ, in the Marvel comics becomes a superhero called Wave, who can manipulate has wave manipulation abilities. We've got let's see who. Oh, well, then we get to Oscorp. And Asha, our Wakandan transfer student, is from the comics and can absorb light. I forget her name. We've got Amadeus Cho, who is a Hulk in the comics. And even the other Oscorp intern, I forget her name, but I think that she's Taskmaster's daughter.
Yeah, Jean Foucault.
And then yes, and then Karla Connors, obviously our Kirk Connors. So we've got a potential Lizard storyline, and even what is the professor's name or the Oscorp guy's name? Whitman. In the comics, he becomes the wizard who fights the Fantastic Four. So you've literally got in these first two episodes, they might not touch half of these. Half of these characters might never get their superhero origin story or supervillain origin story and are just going to be who they are. But potentially, you've got a bunch of new characters that our Spider-Man has never dealt with before that we could go down these roads. And even with the fire guy at the end, who Spider-Man fights, his suit has that kind of infinity symbol that looks like two O's. So maybe we've got a Dr. Octopus, a Doc Ock thing coming. So there's just like, what I loved about the show is it didn't feel too busy. It really focused on Peter. You really got a sense of his life. You really got a sense of the supporting cast and the world that he's living in. But by the end of this, like, this show could go in and we've got a Venom, he got bit by a spider that ostensibly came through a portal with a Venom symbiote. So we've got a Venom thing at play. So it has all the pieces of a great Spider-Man story, but it's like they rearranged all the pieces on the board. So it's going to be surprising. And I think that's what's really satisfying about it.
And one more character to add, Jonathan Gallows, I said, the security guard. That is the civilian identity of a superhero named Ricochet in Marvel's material there. So will that pop up? And it's because they made a point of making him distinct, having a strong back and forth with Peter, and then even having a strong back and forth with Whitman when Whitman was trying to talk down to him. He stood his ground and did his thing. So they're highlighting them because they're all going to play a part in all of this. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see when those powers roll out for each of them and which side of the fence they go on. Because if you're thinking multiversal, just because something's a hero in what you've read in the comic doesn't mean they're going to be a hero and vice versa on the villain side of things. So it could be fascinating to see.
You could do any. I mean,
how it all-
in the comics, Amadeus Cho is a Hulk that sort of like She-Hulk sort of retains his personality. He doesn't Hulk out like Bruce Banner does, but that doesn't mean that
Right.
Amadeus Cho in this series doesn't Hulk out. So like we could potentially get a new take on a Spidey versus Hulk story. So like, you know, we could go that. So like there's so many different ways. And then I think what I hope that we continue to sort of find intersections with the MCU we know. Like Aunt May has the little Tony Stark hanging in her rearview mirror. So we know that Tony Stark exists and that Iron Man exists in this world, even though that's not who Peter meets. We see that Norman Osborn has a photo of him and Captain America. So Captain America exists. Whitman calls Peter Parker Hawkeye. So like the Avengers that we know are around in this universe. And so how does this Peter Parker how does his story intersect with theirs? So that's a whole other, and the Doctor Strange that showed up, and as you mentioned earlier, Charlie Cox is going to be Daredevil. So there's a lot for them to play with. But based on these first 2 episodes, it doesn't feel like they're going to get bogged down in too many cameos and characters, because it really feels like they know the story they're wanting to tell.
And Daredevil, Kingpin, and some, I don't want to ruin anything, or you can go on Wikipedia and see who's coming, but there are quite a lot of Marvel characters coming along with the ones we've already met in this particular 2 episodes, and the ones that have been referenced, and little things there's even a picture of Osborn with T'Chaka there next to the picture with him and Captain America, and the oil company, the Roxxon Oil Company, is mentioned by Nico when they're in the stand. So how is that going to play itself out? So there's little seeds being planted here throughout that I think will bear a lot of fruit. But overall, you know, as we wrap up this review, I like the story they've gone with this. I like where they're taking Peter with this. I'm so invested in where he's going, and I like, as you said, Michael, that he's kind of popular, but it doesn't mean his antisocial stuff isn't around his concerns. You see her at the party.
Nico is still upset that he ditches her at the party. So like those things are still going to happen. So again, it's like they're doing it in a way that, particularly after, I know out of the 3 of us, I was probably the most disappointed, but like after really not jiving with What If season 3, this feels really fresh and new. I don't know that it's going to reach the heights that X-Men 97 reached. For me, like X-Men 97 really kind of like raised the bar of storytelling and animation in a couple episodes in like major ways. This might as well. I don't know that it's going to, but this to me is much closer to X-Men 97 quality in the art direction and the writing and the storytelling than What If season 3. So I'm very happy as an animation fan.
I think nothing underlines that more other than Bo DeMeo not tweeting anything negative about it. So it sounds like he's on board with this thing.
That's a good point.
I like that. Yeah, because I mean, Skeleton Crew can exist in the same sphere as Andor. Then your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man can exist in the same sphere as X-Men 97. I am totally cool with that. We have to have variety in life. And
I will say, just if anybody's interested, just because we're geeky and we talk about geeky things, if you're enjoying this and you're enjoying kind of a different take on a Spider-Man story, I highly recommend you check out in comics right now the new Ultimate Spider-Man run by Jonathan Hickman. I think it's about it's past a year. I think it's a little past a year. It's like 13 or 14 issues are out right now. I forget how many, but the rest of the Ultimate Universe that the Marvel Comics are doing now is like interesting, but not blowing my socks off. But the Ultimate Spider-Man story in the Marvel Universe, where an adult Peter Parker who is married to Mary Jane Watson and has 2 kids and never got bitten by a spider becomes Spider-Man as an adult in this kind of different version of the Marvel Universe. I think it's one of the most, it's the comic right now that every month I'm the most excited to read. So I think just as we're talking about Spider-Man and Peter Parker in the multiverse, if you're digging Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, go pick up Ultimate Spider-Man by Jonathan Hickman and check it out. And I think you're not going to be disappointed, because it does a lot of the similar things where it takes a lot of the characters that we know, does some different things with them, and it's really, really exciting. So check that out as well.
They're available right now as a compilation, issues 1 through 6. You can get it on Amazon for like $18, And then the part 2 is coming out with 7 through 12. That comes out in March 18th. But I'm sure your local comic book store may have issues separately that y'all can catch up on. So anything more to say as we wrap up on this particular review of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? Michael, have we said it all?
I mean, listen, I'm just glad that we ended on something light after talking about all of that fucking controversy. I feel like the rest of this year is going to be a lot of people getting mad about a lot of things that a lot of people say.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
I'm trying to balance the rundown so we can get through these things. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it madly. Thanks if you're watching or you're listening to us. We hope we entertained you, gave you some stuff to consider and think about and talk about with your friends. But Michael, what do we have to tell our fine listeners or viewers?
Well, if you enjoyed this and want more of us, you can follow us on Twitter at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. You can follow me at MK2, and you can follow Mr. Rocha at The Rocha Says. And after you do all that following, we would appreciate it if you smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below. Well, what do you think of the controversy? But what do you think of Spider-Man? Let's talk Spider-Man. Let us know that below. Did you like it? Did it not do it for you? Did the animation work? Did it distract you? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll be back next week with more content here from the
Geek
Buddies.